والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ثم أما بعد. On this night of what is evening, inshallah, which is considered now Sunday, October the 7th, 7:10 p.m., 2018, the Gregorian calendar, which agrees now this Laylat al-Mubarakah, inshallah, of now we're in the 27th night of Muharram. Man, these 27th night of Muharram, which coincides with 1440 after the migration of the Prophet ﷺ. So in the Islamic calendar, today is the 27th night. The 27th night, which agrees with the Am 1440 of the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wasalam. As we were discussing this affair of the great Imam, Sheikh Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, that he put in this tremendous book. Oh, he didn't. You guys didn't pray yet? Oh, you didn't pray yet? As you'll find in the chapter that he said, Bab qawlillahi ta'ala, hatta idha fuzzi'a an qulubihim, qalu madha qala rabbukum, qalu al-haq, wa huwa al-aliyu al-kabir. Until the horror and the fright is removed from their hearts, they say, what did your Lord say? They will say the truth, and he is al-ali al-kabir. As we spoke and discussed, and we said and established based upon this ayah that Allah Ta'ala is affirmed for him sifatul kalam, is affirmed for him speech, and that Allah Ta'ala, that he speaks with a voice and with words and with letters which are understood. That we affirm speech for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we said that it's a characteristic of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's essence, and it's a characteristic of his actions, both. Based upon the ayah that we talked about, what the great Imam that he inaugurated the chapter with in this ayah, which is the Surah As-Saba, ayah number 23. Before we entered the discussion about establishing the speech of Allah Ta'ala, we talked about the angels. And we said that the angels, based upon this ayah, Allah Ta'ala has affirmed, as Allah Ta'ala has established, in this ayah, or what we have established based upon this ayah, in affirming what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala affirmed, which is that the angels, that they have hearts. If you notice in the ayah, it says, until the horror or the fright is removed from their qulub. So that affirms what, everyone? The malaika, that they have qulub. The malaika, that they have heart. And also likewise, they comprehend. That they also understand and they comprehend and they're cognizant of how the human beings understand. Similar to that, the angels likewise comprehend and understand. If you notice in the ayah, also they said, they asked the question, what did your Lord say? And they said the truth. And he said the truth. And he is al-Ali al-Kabir. And that he's the most high. And he's al-Kabir. So all this affirms, number one, like we said, that the angels have hearts. And also, they comprehend. Some people think that they're like, maybe in certain people's perspective or understanding, they think that the angels are like robots, that they just carry out the commands of Allah, which they do. But it still does not remove them from the fact that they do not comprehend. Rather, they do comprehend and they understand. In so many different ayat in which they asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about Adam. Are you going to make in the earth the one who spreads corruption and sheds blood, even though we praise you or we glorify your praise? All of that is to show that the angels what? Comprehend. And also in regards to the day of resurrection, as we talked about before, when all of the creation or all of what is created has been gathered on the day of resurrection. And we talked about how every thing that was worshipped besides Allah in this dunya will flip, become enemies to those who worship them. And the angels will free themselves from those who used to worship them in this dunya by saying, Subhanaka anta waliyuna min dunihim, bal kanu ya'budun al-jinn, aktharu bihim mu'minun. That they'll say, glory be to you, you were their wali, besides them. Rather, they used to worship the jinn. So it shows, all these ayat shows what, everyone? That the angels comprehend. They have comprehension and they understand. Even though they carry out Allah Ta'ala's command. As Allah Ta'ala talks about in Surah Maryam to Jibreel, where Allah Ta'ala says, وَلَا نَتَنَزَّلُ وَمَا نَتَنَزَّلُ إِلَّا بِأَمْرِ رَبِّكَ وَلَا نَتَنَزَّلُ إِلَّا بِأَمْرِ رَبِّكَ لنا ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم لنا ما بين أيدينا وما خلفنا وما دون ذلك وما كان ربك نسيا. As Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Maryam, that He says that we do not descend except by the command of your Lord. As Muhammad, the Prophet ﷺ, had asked, why don't you come visit us more? And then the ayat was revealed, وَمَا نَتَنَزَّلُ إِلَّا بِأَمْرِ رَبِّكَ. We do not descend except by the command of your Lord. لَهُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِينَا وَمَا خَلْفِنَا وَمَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ وَمَا كَانَ رَبُّكَ نَسِيًّا. He said, for verily it belongs to us, or what belongs to Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is from in front of us and behind us, and besides that. And your Lord is never forgetful. So they do carry out the commands of Allah, no doubt. And but at the same time, we do not negate that they do not have comprehension and what they understand, and in which, based upon the ayat, you'll find that Allah Ta'ala has mentioned and said upon it, of course, the malaika will bear witness of those who worship them, and all the other ayats that affirm that they do have some type of understanding and they comprehend. For any ayat, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, as we talked about also in regards to affirming the characteristic of speech, and in light of what we mentioned in last class. For verily, the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a characteristic, like we said, in which you'll find the deviant sect called the Asha'ira played heavily with in this particular characteristic. As this characteristic, you'll find, if you listen to the ta'rif, or the definition of speech with the deviant sect called the Asha'ira, you'll find, like we said, it is very confusing. As we talked about and said that their meaning of speech is kalam al-nafs or kalam nafsi. As you'll find that the belief of Ahlul Sunnah is that we believe that Allah Ta'ala speaks. He speaks with a voice. He speaks with words. And Allah Ta'ala has a voice that is heard. And it will be understood. When everyone on the day of resurrection is brought, everyone will understand clearly what will be said to them from their Lord subhanahu jalla fil ula, and they will not need a translator between him and his Lord, as it comes in the narration of Ibn Abbas, that Allah Ta'ala, that He will speak to the abd, to the servant on the day of resurrection, and He will not have between him and his Lord any tarjuman, anybody to translate, meaning that he will clearly understand what is being conveyed to him and how he will be addressed in regards to the actions of what he put forth in his dunya. May Allah Ta'ala give us a good, may Allah Ta'ala give us a good ending and pardon us for our actions, for our evil actions. For we say, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, that the kalam of Allah, of Ahlul Sunnah, we believe that is speech, that is done, that is uttered, of what we when we understand as human beings to be verbal speech, even though Allah Ta'ala laysa kamithlihi shay, wa huwa as-sami'ul basir. Even though nothing, He subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing is similar to Him. And He's Sami'ul Basir, no doubt. But what we will understand, like we said, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, is that we believe that Allah speaks of what we understand as words, sentences, a voice, and it comprises of letters. That Allah Ta'ala speaks with this speech, just as Allah Ta'ala said to Musa, and Musa understood clearly when Allah Ta'ala said to Musa, he says, Inni ana Allahu la ilaha illa ana fa'budani wa aqimis salata li dhikri wa inna as-sa'ata la'atiyatun akadu ukhfiha litujza kullu nafsin bima tas'a wa la yusuddannaka anha man la yu'minu biha wattaba'a hawahu fatarda. This is what Allah said to Musa. He says, O Musa, verily I am Allah. None has the right to be worshipped except me. La ilaha illa ana fa'budani wa aqim as-salata li dhikri. Verily I am Allah. None has the right to be worshipped except me. Worship me alone and establish the salat for my remembrance. Verily the hour is about to be established, in which I will hide and what I'm about to hide, in order for every soul to be repaid of what it did in this world. So do not let anything or anyone take you away from that follow their desires, and then they fall into destruction. Allah Ta'ala said this to Musa in a manner, like we said, which was understood with words, a voice, letters, of sentences, and which is affirmed for Allah Ta'ala, which is the Aqeedah of Ahl-Sunnah. Allah Ta'ala also said to Musa in a lot of different ayat, which Allah had revealed to Musa, alayhi salatu wasalam. You'll find that Musa, there's a lot of different examples, I don't have time, I'm just stick with this example. But this particular ayah, Allah Ta'ala addressed Musa and said it clearly. Verily I am Allah, none has the right to be worshipped except me. That voice that Musa heard, is it similar to the voice of the creation? Do we say no? But it is a voice that it will be clear, it is heard, and on top of that, like we said, it is done with sentences and words, and it's a voice. Is it similar to the voice of the human beings? We say no. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. Nothing is similar to Allah, and He is all hearing and all seeing. Just as Allah Ta'ala also likewise spoke directly to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. When he rose, when the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had risen, or Allah raised him to the seventh or above the seventh heaven, and he spoke directly to the Messenger of Allah Alayhi Salatu Wasallam. And when he spoke to the Messenger of Allah Alayhi Salatu Wasallam, in which he, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, had made and obliged upon the servants to pray, at first it was 50 salah, in which he had made binding upon the servants to pray 50 times, in which the Messenger of Allah ﷺ had heard directly from Allah. And you'll find there's no action in which you'll find, in which is the most important of how it was made or how it was legislated than the salat, because it was directly, it wasn't through any type of wasita, it wasn't any type of middleman, or it wasn't through Jibreel, and it wasn't through revelation. It was directly made obligatory from Allah, directly. He said it directly to the Messenger of Allah, to let you know the high emphasis of the prayer. The point of the matter that we're establishing here is that Allah Ta'ala speaks. He speaks with words, He speaks in sentences, and He speaks with a voice that is heard. How is it? Allahu A'lam. That goes back to the athar of Imam Malik, in which we mentioned and said, in which if we have time to get into Aqeedah, we say what the great Imam Malik had mentioned and said, how is it? Or how is the sifat of Allah? For example, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa. كيف استوى؟ قال الاستواء معلوم. الاستواء معلوم يعني معلوم المعنى. والاستواء معلوم. والكيف مجهول. والإيمان به واجب. والسؤال عنه بدعة. Well, Imam Malik has said in that tremendous athar, what he said, when that individual came in the masjid, he said, Allah rose above the arsh after He created the heavens and the earth and that which between it. Then He rose above the arsh. How? And we know that Imam Malik has said, أخذته الرحضاء, that he started to sweat profusely. He started to sweat profusely. How? Due to the severity of the question. So he said to that person, the ascension of Allah is known. How Allah did it is not known. Faith in it is obligatory. To ask about it is bid'ah, is innovation. Any characteristic of Allah, you put it on that scale. There isn't a characteristic from the characteristics of Allah except you put it on the exact same scale. For example, the face of Allah. How is the face of Allah? So the face of Allah is known. How is it not known? Belief in it is obligatory. Asking about it is bid'ah, is innovation. Likewise, similar to any characteristic of Allah, you put it on that scale, you'll come up with the same result. Allah laughs. As we know, we affirm that Allah Ta'ala laughs. As it comes in the authentic narration, where the man said directly to the Messenger of Allah, أَيَضْحَكُ رَبُّنَا قال صلى الله عليه وسلم نعم فقال إذن لا نعدم من ربك يضحك خيرا. But the Bedouin had mentioned to the Messenger of Allah, he said, does our Lord laugh? The Prophet ﷺ said, yes. He said, okay, we will never give up from a Lord that laughs any good, meaning that we consist in hope for him good, from him Ta'ala good. This is now the characteristic of laughing. And we know the narration also comes in Tirmidhi and other than them, that on the day of resurrection of the last man that will be dragging, he will be dragging in paradise, the last person. Of after he's been destroyed and he's been tortured in the hellfire, he had to be purified. Or excuse me, I'm sorry everyone. I'm sorry. That the man that before he entered paradise, that he passed over the bridge and the hellfire had touched him a bit. And he's been scorched and he was tortured until the point of one narration, matter of fact, it's the other narration, the Tirmidhi is both. That one man, after he is put in the hellfire, and another one will be one man who's crawling. He'd be crawling into paradise, and he will be from the last of those who will enter. The point of the matter is, it says in the narration that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ that affirmed that Allah Ta'ala will bring his servant and he will say a statement. And he was said, أَتَسْتَهْزِئُ بِي وَأَنْتَ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. That the slave, what he will say when he enters into paradise, he said, oh Allah, are you mocking at me even though you're the Lord of the worlds? Until the Prophet ﷺ had laughed, he said, because Allah will laugh. He will laugh at him. And he will say, enter paradise. So all these are affirming that Allah Ta'ala laughs. How does Allah laugh? We believe in it. The laughter of Allah is known. How Allah laughs, not known. Faith in it is what? Obligatory. To ask about it, what everyone? Is bid'ah. Similar to now, we put on the same scale, speech. Same thing. The speech of Allah is what everyone? Is known. How the speech of Allah is? It's not known. Faith in it is obligatory. To ask about is what everyone? Is bid'ah. So that's the same scale of any characteristic from the characteristics of Allah Ta'ala. It's put on that same exact scale. But we know that Allah Ta'ala, that his speech, he calls out, as he called out to Musa. That Allah, yatakallam, that also Allah speaks, and Allah yaqul, waqal. We find all these in all narrations. Yaqulu, qala, or qala maqulatan, or takallam, or nada. All these affirms the speech of Allah, that Allah called out. As Allah Ta'ala talked about Musa and Surah Maryam likewise. وَنَادَيْنَا مُوسَى مِنْ جَانِبِ الطُّورِ الْأَيْمَنِ وَقَرَّبْنَاهُ نَجِيًّا. As Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Maryam. He says that we called out to Musa from the side مِنْ جَانِبِ الطُّورِ الْأَيْمَنِ, from the right side of the mountain. And we brought him close to speak to him. So it shows here in the ayah Surah Maryam that Allah Ta'ala called out to Musa, which is another type of form of what? Speech. And also Allah Ta'ala described Musa as Kalim Allah. Kalim. That he was what? The one who Allah spoke to. And there's another ayah where Allah Ta'ala says in his book, he says, وَكَلَّمَهُ رَبُّهُ. As Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Al-A'raf, in another ayah where Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala talked about Musa, he says, وَوَاعَدَنَا مُوسَى 40 لَيْلَةً وأتممناها بعشر وتم ميقات ربه 40 ليلة. Excuse me. Until it says in the ayah where he said to Musa, after Allah Ta'ala had revealed Himself to Allah Ta'ala, of what we will understand in the narration, it says that Musa had said to Allah, when he said to our Lord, قال ربي أرني أنظر إليك قال لن تراني ولكن انظر إلى الجبل فإن استقر مكانه فسوف تراني فلما تجلى ربه للجبل جعله دكا وخر موسى صاعقا فلما أفاق قال سبحانك تبت إليك وأنا أول المؤمنين قال يا موسى إني اصطفيتك على الناس برسالاتي وبكلامي فخذ ما آتيتك وكن من الشاكرين. So Allah Ta'ala says that when He brought to Musa, He said فَلَمَّا جَاءَ مُوسَى لِمِيقَاتِنَا وَكَلَّمَهُ رَبُّهُ. He says when Musa came to the appointed time and the meeting place, his Lord spoke to him. كَلَّمَهُ رَبُّهُ. His Lord spoke to him. And Musa had asked Allah Ta'ala to reveal Himself. So He said to Musa, of course we know, you will not see me. However, meaning that you cannot see me in this dunya, because your body is extremely weak. However, look to the mountain, Musa. If it stays in this place, then you will have seen me. As you'll find the author as it comes in the tafsir, as Ibn Kathir mentions, it says Allah revealed to the mountain of what we will understand of human beings is just a fingertip of what we understand as human beings is a fingertip. And Allah manifested to the mountain, it became ashes and dust. To show Musa that you are too weak physically. You're not capable in this world. Your body's too weak. Can't withstand it. So Musa fell out unconscious, as we know. When Musa came to light, when he came back to his senses, it says in the ayah, قَالَ يَا Musa. This is another part of the ayah where it establishes that Allah speaks. Listen to what it says. قَالَ يَا Musa. Allah said, O Musa, verily I have chosen you from the people, or over the people, with my message and hearing my speech. إِنِّي اصْطَفَيْتُكَ عَلَى النَّاسِ بِرِسَالَاتِي وَبِكَلَامِي. With my messages, meaning you being a messenger and a prophet to humanity, to Bani Israel, and with my speech, meaning you heard my voice, you heard my speech. Meaning, this is something of a privilege in which other from the creation did not have. So Allah Ta'ala in this ayah has affirmed also the three things we just mentioned. One is nada, that He called out to Musa. And this ayah in Surah Al-A'raf, qal, He said, Allah. And it said in the ayah, bi kalami, with my speech. So Allah Ta'ala is affirming that He speaks. He talks in a voice that's understood, and a person would not need any translator if his Lord Ta'ala speak to him. Some narrate, we're going to go too deep into this. So all this is to affirm that Allah Ta'ala speaks of what we will understand, like we said, Ya Ma'ash al-Ikhwa, of words that are malfooth, or love, of what we will understand as human beings, even though it's not compared to Allah, rather it's nothing similar to Allah, as words that are uttered. Does it now necessitate, as we mentioned last week, of what the Ash'ari said, that just because they're words that utter, and this is the reason why, like we said, they twist the meaning of it, and like we said, there's not a characteristic you'll find that the Ash'ari play more with than the speech of Allah. They affirm it, but they play around with it. So number one, as we said, they say that the speech of Allah is not something that is uttered as words as you will understand, because they say that it necessitates makharij al-huruf, that there has to be places where the speech comes out from, meaning lips, jaws, tongue, blood, veins. And Allah is high above that, as they say. So that means that it's not actual words that are uttered. We don't affirm that because Allah is raised far above of those words that are done with lips, jaws, or tongue, or vein, or blood, or skin to the end of it, of what the human being needs to have that particular characteristic. And like we talked about in refutation to this, when we rebutted this ambiguity by saying what, everyone? What did we say? We said that the great Imam Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, it said, he came with the qa'idah Ahl Sunnah in this regard by saying, لوازم المخلوقين لا تستلزم الصفات المخلوقين لا تلزم ولا تستلزم منها صفات الخالق. The characteristics that the creation that it had, or the lawazim of what the creation needs for its characteristics, does not necessitate that Allah has those same needs for His characteristics. For example, the human being needs a jaw. The human being needs lips. The human being needs a tongue. The human being needs veins and blood running through certain parts of his mouth in order to have that characteristic of speech. That's not for Allah. Allah does not have those lawazim. Even though we affirm from Him speech which is uttered, Allah Ta'ala does not have those same lawazim. There are things from the creation that uttered speech, that had words and spoke, even though it did not have these lawazim. As we talked about in the hadith al-Bukhari. In the hadith al-Bukhari where the Prophet ﷺ said that he passed by Mecca and he passed by a rock that gave him salams. A rock. And when do we know a rock to have tongue, lips, veins, blood, jaw, teeth to the end of it? And despite of that, it spoke. A rock gave salams to the Prophet ﷺ. In some narrations, like we said, it said Mecca. A rock in Mecca, he heard it, giving salams. Another example that Shaykh al-Islam gave, he says when the Sahabas, it comes in the Sahihain, al-Bukhari and Muslim, he says during the time when we used to gather with the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he says when the Messenger of Allah ﷺ used to eat, he said we used to hear the tasbih at-ta'am. We used to hear the food glorifying Allah in the hands of the Messenger of Allah, glorifying and making tasbih, food. They heard the tasbih of the ta'am from food, saying subhanallah, 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 tasbih. They heard it. They said they used to hear the tasbih of food, talking. They said they heard it. When do we know now for food to have tongue, lips, veins, blood, jaws, tongue, a jaw to speak, and despite of that, it spoke. We affirm this because they said the Sahaba mentioned this in the Sahihain. You can't argue its authenticity. Its authenticity is in the highest level of authenticity. Rather, it's both in the Bukhari and Muslim. And like we said, Shaykh al-Islam said that this was from the evidences and proofs that show there are things from the creation that Allah Ta'ala instilled in it, the ability of what? Of these characteristics, such as speech. And despite of that, it did not have the lawazim of the creation from the human beings, of having jaw, tongue, vein, blood running through it in order to what? Have the characteristics of speech. From that is the rock. From that is food. From that, the date palm tree that moaned and groaned. From that is the earth will speak on the day of resurrection. From that is our skin will also talk on the day of resurrection. Person's legs and his hands will also testify. It will talk and it will speak. All these are affairs and examples of creation that Allah created that had the characteristics of speech, and it did not have the lawazim of the creation. It did not have what the creation needed in order to have that what? Characteristic. If you know this and affirm this for the creation, why can you not say that Allah is exalted and far above those same lawazim that are removed of the creation in order to affirm for him that characteristic of speech? What's the difference? These are things Allah created, and it didn't have those lawazim. What about Allah? Is it clear? Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So all those affairs, like we said, Ya Ma'ash al-Ikhwa, of speech, like we said, they say that Allah does not speak with words of what we understand as uttered speech. Rather, it's done inwardly, similar to what human beings have of inward thoughts. That's what they say about the speech of Allah, which is all absolute what? Nonsense. And it doesn't make any sense. Allah Ta'ala also has the characteristic after the speech, as I don't want to go inside this because this is more for Al-Aqidat al-Wasitiyya. So I don't want to go too deep into this. But at any rate, also likewise you'll find in the ayah, Allah Ta'ala says, or the angels say that He's Ali, Al-Kabir. As we know, Allah Ta'ala also has the characteristic of Al-Ulu. So notice the angel said in the book that He's the most high. Meaning that He's the most high of those three categories of highness and aboveness. As number one, Allah Ta'ala is Ali bidatihi. He's high, meaning He Himself Ta'ala is above everything. Subhanahu Jalla fil Ula. Allah Ta'ala is above the creation. His essence is above the creation. Allah Ta'ala has the characteristic of what they call ulu. Ulu meaning the ulu of that. The ulu, the highness of His essence. Allah Ta'ala is above everything. And the creation is below. And Allah Ta'ala is above the creation. As it says in the poetry of Al-Hafid Al-Hakimi, that he said that the ulu Allah is of three types. Where he says that Allah Ta'ala huwa al-aliyu, huwa al-a'la, huwa al-muta'a, li kullu ma'na ulu Allahi na'taqidu. قدر وقهرا وذات جل خالقنا ما حل فينا ولا بالخلق متحد وفي 7 آية صرح باستوى على العرش ربي فهو منفرد. That he said in his poetry, rahimahullah. That he said that Allah Ta'ala ulu breaks down the three categories in his poetry, he says. He said that Allah is al-aliyu, huwa al-a'la, huwa al-muta'ali, kullu ma'na ulu Allahi na'taqidu. قدرا وقهرا وذاتا جل خالقنا ما حل فينا ولا بالخلق متحد. He said that the ulu of Allah breaks down the three types. You have ulu of that. Allah's aboveness as far as He Himself is above everything. Then you have ulu al-qadr, or what they call ulu al-makanah. Not makan, makanah, makanatun. It's a difference in the meaning. Do not say ulu al-makan. Say ulu al-makanah. Makanah means Allah's highness and His status. Meaning, in what His servants, what they have in themselves, or what they have of glorification and magnification, of knowing the highness of Allah and how they fear Him and magnify Him in themselves. That's the meaning of ulu al-qadr. Meaning what all the humans feel, what the human beings have in themselves of that glorification and that magnification and that veneration for Allah Ta'ala. That's called ulu al-qadr or ulu al-makanah. Meaning what all the human beings in the servants feel of the domination and power and glory and might of Allah Ta'ala. That's the second category of ulu. Then you have the third category of ulu, which is called ulu al-qahr. Al-ulu al-qahr is the aboveness of Allah as far as in His domination and power. All three categories of the aboveness of Allah we affirm. So you have ulu al-that, you have ulu al-qadr, or you could call it ulu al-makanah. Ulu al-makanah. Or you can, in the third category, is called ulu al-qahr. Qaf ha ra. Ulu al-qahr. Qahar means to dominate, domination. Allah Ta'ala is above the creation. He's above the seventh heaven. To show how powerful Allah Ta'ala is, we know that the heavens and the vastness of what we see and what we know, that just from the first heaven to the second one is the distance of 500 years, which human beings will never even begin. They waste their time journeying in space. It's a waste of time. Because you do not have time from one heaven to another is the distance of 500 years. You haven't even begun to scratch the surface, nor you will be able to do it in a lifetime, nor probably in about maybe 10 lifetimes, in which the human being is only given one, to scratch the surface of the vastness of just from one heaven to the another. You would never even draw close to just even scratching the surface. The Prophet Abdullah bin Mas'ud mentioned it, said from one to the other is the distance of 500 years. That's just from one heaven to another, from one to two. Then you have from 2 to 3, another 500 years. So the human beings, for you astronauts, y'all have a long way to go, which I think you never reach. Then you have from the 3rd to the 4th is another 500 years. Then you have another from the 4th to the 5th was another 500 years. Then you have from the 5th to the 6th, which is another 500 years. Then you have from the 6th to the 7th, which is another 500 years. All of that is small in comparison to the footstool of Allah, in which Ibn Abbas mentioned it, said that the footstool of Allah is the Mawdi'ul Qadamain, is the place of and what we affirm for Allah, وَلَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, which is the place of the 2 feet of Allah Ta'ala. In comparison to all those heavens, just the footstool is considered like a ring this big thrown in the middle of a desolate desert. The vastness of the heavens and the earth of all those distances, in comparison to the footstool of Allah, is like a ring thrown in the middle of a desolate desert. Take a ring now, throw it in the middle of a desolate desert. All those heavens to the footstool of Allah, it's like that. Of all that vastness. That's just the footstool of Allah. So everyone knows in their mind how big and how they can even imagine, they can even comprehend of how vast of the footstool of Allah is in comparison to the 500 years distances of each heaven up to the 7th. Then we have after that, which is more dominant than that, where the footstool of Allah is small. Even though we should just establish how vast the footstool is. The footstool of Allah is what? Small. In comparison to the Arsh of Ar-Rahman. Where the Arsh of Ar-Rahman, as Ibn Abbas says, لا يقدر قدره. He says that its distance can't even be measured. Which is the throne of Allah. The throne of Allah can't even be measured. In comparison to the footstool of Allah, to the Arsh, to the throne, it's similar to a small ring desert, a small ring that's thrown in the middle of a desolate desert. And Allah Ta'ala's Arsh, subhanahu, cannot be measured. As Ibn Abbas says, لا يقدر قدره. It cannot be measured of His vastness and His greatness and His magnification and His glory, of how big it is. And we know just the kursi, the footstool, as Allah Ta'ala said, وَسِعَ كُرْسِيُّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَلَا يَؤُودُهُ حِفْظُهُمَا وَهُوَ الْعَلِيُّ الْكَبِيرُ وَهُوَ الْعَلِيُّ الْعَظِيمُ. Allah Ta'ala says just His footstool, He says, encompasses the heavens and the earth. That's just the footstool. In comparison to the throne of Allah, the footstool is just like a little ring thrown in the middle of a desolate desert. And as Abdullah bin Mas'ud mentioned and said, he says, Al-Arsh fawqa al-ma' wallahu fawqa al-Arsh wa la yakhfa alayhi shay' min a'malikum. Then you have the water. There is a water hovering in the air. Of what? Has come in the revelation. That there's a water. In which you'll find that the throne of Allah is likewise above the water. The water in which you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, this is an ayah, brothers, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, وَكَانَ عَرْشُهُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ. that Allah's arsh and his throne is above water. That water, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, that is hovering in the air, nothing is holding it up. It's just hovering. In which to show that Allah can what? Create what he wants in the manner he wants. That nothing has to necessarily, even from creation of what we think in our minds, that something has to contain it. Allah made something that goes against what we know in our minds, and what we consider so-called the norm. Allah made a water to be hovering in the air by itself. And which you'll find the great Imam, Sheikh Ahmed Najmi, had mentioned and said this in the chapter. He said, contemplate on how Allah can create something of what goes against what we think is so-called the norm. He says how Allah Ta'ala created a water that is hovering above the heavens. And his arsh and his throne is above that. In which the arsh cannot be what? Measured its distance of how magnificent and great it is. Just to let you know how minute the seven heavens is in comparison to the footstool, and how minute the footstool is in comparison to the arsh. And if you think that is in regards to the arsh, how huge and massive it is, Allah is the arsh of Ar-Rahman is above the water, as Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, and Allah is above the arsh. And nothing is hidden from you, and nothing is hidden from him of your deeds. Allah Ta'ala is bigger than everything. Subhanahu Jalla fil Ula. To let you know how magnificent Allah Ta'ala is. How can you even fathom to think that you can comprehend in your mind something that can hear and see everything simultaneously? How can you think you can even fathom his essence? As we know that Shaykh al-Islam came with the qa'idah. That he says, Al-kalam fi sifat far'un anil kalami fi dhat yuhtada fihi hadwa. We come with another qa'idah and another principle. Where he mentioned and said about the sifat of Allah, where he said, Al-kalam fi sifat far'un anil kalami fi dhat yuhtada fihi hadwa. Every time you want to now ask about the characteristics of Allah, ask of how his essence is. You cannot even fathom his essence. How can you not fathom? If you cannot fathom his characteristics, excuse me, I'm sorry, reverse it. Rather, his characteristics, you can't even fathom his characteristics. You can't even begin to comprehend the characteristics of Allah. A person would say, how? Because no one in this room right now cannot imagine how there is something that can see everything simultaneously. Can you understand that in your mind? See everything simultaneously in the heavens and the earth. See it simultaneously. You can't even begin to comprehend it whatsoever. Can you imagine there's an essence and there's a deity that can hear everything simultaneously? And Shaykh al-Islam even added another detail onto this. He said, not only does Allah hear everything simultaneously, everything. He says, think of all the different languages there are. Think of all the needs and supplications people have. Think of all the different languages, different tongues, intents, all of that happening all at the same time, and Allah understands and sees and hears all of it and understands it. Can you understand every single language at the same time? Can you understand everybody's needs at the same time? Can you see everything in the heavens and the earth? Rather, everyone's sight and their brain and their minds and their ears are all limited. It stops at a certain distance and it stops. No one can see it. It's beyond or hear beyond a certain distance. That should let you know that your brain likewise is bounded to a certain distance. So you cannot even begin to comprehend Allah Ta'ala's his characteristics. If you can't comprehend how he can hear everything or how he can see everything and that he even knows everything, how can you even begin to fathom how Allah rose above the arsh? How can you even begin to fathom how Allah's face is or how the hands of Allah are? Or even how his essence is. Because of the qa'idah, the kalam fi sifat far'un al kalami fi dhat. He said to speak about his characteristics is a branch of talking about his essence. They emulate each other. How, if you don't know these characteristics, you don't know how they are, nor you can even begin, then go back to the greatness of his essence. If you can't even understand the characteristics and begin to comprehend it, how can you think you'll be able to comprehend his essence of how it is? How? It's too far off. It's too great. Ma a'zama sha'nahu. As the great Imam Sheikh Muhammad Aman al-Jami used to say. He said, Ma a'zama sha'na. How great his affair is, tabaraka wa ta'ala. And how people be low and think they can really fathom the sifat of Allah? Now, so how can a person even begin to think how the sifat of Allah ta'ala is, or the essence of Allah, when there are things from the creation that you can't even understand, that Allah created, that's beyond your mind? How? What is it? Your soul, your ruh, the spirit of the human being. As we know, the spirit of the human being is something created. The spirit, the ruh, is created. Allah ta'ala created the ruh. He created it, and it's something way beyond our comprehension. That's something Allah created. We know that the ruh, the mahiyatul ruh, the actual quintessence of how the spirit that's put in the soul of the human being is way beyond the comprehension of how we can even begin to fathom it. What Shaykh al-Islam mentioned about the ruh, listen to what he said about it. He said that the ruh, when you are asleep, he says the soul leaves the body in a manner in which it doesn't totally leave it completely. But he said it leaves it and departs and it goes up. But at the same time, it's still connected with the body. That's the reason why you'll find the authentic sunnah that sleep is called the minor death. It's called the what? Al-Mawtatu Sughra. It's called the minor death. When you sleep, your soul leaves your body and it goes up and Allah takes it. But it's still at the same time still connected to the body. What's the dalil for that? The dalil for that comes in the ayah, where Allah Ta'ala says in his book, Allahu yatawaffa al-anfus hina mawtiha wallati lam tamut fi manamiha wa yursilu allati qada alayha al-maut wa yursilu al-ukhra ila ajl musamma. Inna fi dhalika la ayatin li qawmin yatafakkarun. Well, Allah Ta'ala says in his book, he says Allah takes the anfus. Allahu yatawaffa al-anfus. He takes them at death. Listen to what he says in the ayah. Yatawaffa al-anfus hina mawtiha. He takes its souls at the time of death. Because we know also in authentic narration, when you die, your soul goes up to Allah, which is another affirmation that Allah is above. Because your soul, when you what? Die, your soul goes up to Allah first, then he puts it back in your body. Because when you go up, and it's from the righteous souls, you'll find that the creation will praise it and say that it's from a nafs al-tayyibah. It's going up, and you will see the creation praising that soul that is wholesome. Then Allah sends it back down to the body until the hour is established and put it back in the grave with the body. At any rate, the soul of which goes up, Allah Ta'ala says he takes it at death. And likewise, he says that which death has not been preordained yet, meaning sleep. Where your sleep is a type of death. He says, Allah yatawaffa al-anfus hina mawtiha, meaning wafa. Wafa meaning in the Arabic language means death. Wafatun. Wafa. Wafa means death. And death breaks it down to two types. You have the death that is major, and you have the death that is minor. The death that is minor is when you sleep, when you're asleep at night. So notice that it says, Allah yatawaffa al-anfus hina mawtiha, wallati lam tamut fi manamiha. And what did not die, or what did not die in its sleep. So it means, in this ayah, if you look back to the tafsir of it, that the soul leaves the body. For yursilu allati qada alayha al-maut. Allah sends for the soul that death has been preordained for it, meaning that he holds it back, meaning he keeps it. And we know that in certain cases, people can die in their sleep. Allah Ta'ala holds the soul back from going back into the body, which shows that what? When you sleep, your soul leaves your body. He says, for as for the souls, that death has not been what? Preordained, he sends it back. فَيُرْسِلُ الَّتِي قَضَى عَلَيْهَا الْمَوْتِ فَيُمْسِكُ الَّتِي قَضَى عَلَيْهَا الْمَوْتِ. He holds back the souls in which death has been preordained, and the ones have not been preordained, he sends it back to their bodies to an appointed time. Verily in that is a what? It's a sign for what? To those to reflect. Shaykh al-Islam used this in order to go back to the point. Now I'm going to go back to what we're talking about. So he said this is how the ruh, the spirit of Allah that he created, operates. Leaves the body when one is asleep, at the same time it's still connected. Nobody can even understand that and be able again to fathom how that is. That's something Allah created. That it can do this type of affair that we cannot even begin to comprehend. This is something Allah created that does this. If you really think you can't even comprehend how something Allah created does this, how in the world can you think how Allah Ta'ala's characteristics and His essence is? How? When your mind, your brain, your eyes, your ears go to a certain distance and stops. You can't see beyond it, you can't hear beyond it. And on top of that, your brain stops. There's a boundary to it. Allah Ta'ala, like we said, مَا أَعْظَمَ شَأْنَهُ. How great His affair is. And how glorified He is, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. How and which they say about Him, Subhanahu Jalla fil Ula. So you find, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, this is to show that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is above the heavens and He's bigger than everything. Is it time for the Salah? What time did it come in? Oh, so that means we got 4 minutes left. The point that we're trying to make is that Allah Ta'ala is above the heavens. That He has what they call ulu al-dhat, aboveness of His essence. That characteristic is Allah, part of Allah's essence that never leaves Allah. Allah is always above. Allah Ta'ala is always above. Aboveness, highness shows majesty, exaltedness, sublimity, power, domination, might, glory, magnificence. So if that's a characteristic of perfection, then what is a characteristic of perfection? Aboveness is a characteristic of Allah Ta'ala's essence. It never leaves Allah. I'm sorry. Loftiness of His essence. طيب. It's actually time for your call. I guess we go for extra 5 more minutes. Time flies. No, it don't make no sense how fast it flies. طيب. Allah Ta'ala has the characteristic called ulu of that. That's the first category. The highness, the loftiness of Allah's essence, meaning He Himself is above the heavens. Allah Ta'ala has the characteristics, as we know, of His essence, and and the characteristics of his actions. As far as the characteristic of loftiness or aboveness or highness, that's part of his essence. That never leaves Allah. Allah Ta'ala is always above his creation. When he comes on the day of resurrection, he'll be above the creation. He will always be above. Always. Ta'ala. When Allah rose above, of course, the Arsh, he was above the heavens. He will never cease to be above his creation. When Allah comes on the day of resurrection, he will be above. When Allah commences the day of resurrection for the accountability of the human beings, for mankind, he will still be above. Allah is always above his creation. The Prophet ﷺ had talked about on the day of resurrection, when he comes, and when Allah Ta'ala will bring him, and say Muhammad, Prophet ﷺ will prostrate, as it says in the narration, under the Arsh. That he will prostrate under the Arsh. To let you know that still on the day of resurrection, Allah Ta'ala will still be above. So all these narrations to show that the characteristic of ulu is a characteristic of his essence. It never leaves Allah. That which you'll find, was contradictory. Rather, it opposes that belief, which is confusing, is the belief of all the other deviant sects we talked about. But they believe that Allah Ta'ala exists without a place. First of all, the word place. Some of them, they say Allah exists without a place. Some of them say that Allah is everywhere. Some of them say that Allah is not above, nor is he to the left, nor to the right, nor is he above, nor is he under. All of that is confusing. And for a person that adopts that type of those type of beliefs will cause some type of confusion in the essence of what makes your iman valid in the first place. Because everything now is based upon a weak foundation, where a person has not known his Lord to the point where he's confused. For all those other ideologies and convictions and beliefs, it's confusing. It's the belief that Allah Ta'ala is in, for example, of the word or the usage of the word place. First of all, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, leave off the word place. Don't even use it as it pertains to Allah. Leave off the word makan, not makana, makanun, not makanatun, makanun. Makanatun means status. Makanun means place. Makan, do not even use it. Take it out your vocabulary as it pertains to Allah. For example, saying where is the place of Allah? Place. Just say ain't Allah. But don't say makanuhu. The word makan never was used with the Salaf. They stuck to what was narrated in the ayat in the book of Allah and in the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The word place is from those words that they say, Shaykh al-Islam mentioned about them, is from those they say, those kalimatun, mujmalatun, mubhamatun, muhtamilatun lil haqqi wal batil. It is a word that's vague, obscure, general. It can necessitate truth and falsehood at the same time. The word place, as it pertains to using it for Allah. Ahl al-Batil are the people of falsehood, and they still use these words to this day. For example, they say, we don't blind follow anyone. It's the same pattern. We don't blind follow anyone. We don't blind follow anyone. We won't blind follow anyone. And then they'll arouse the people. Yeah, we don't blind follow anyone. We won't blind follow anyone. Yeah, to the end of it. Yeah, akhi. They say that we don't blind follow anyone is from the qabil in which Shaykh al-Islam refuted the people of falsehood in the past. That's a word that's obscure. It's general. It can necessitate truth and falsehood. These are from the vocabulary words that they use in order to cause confusion. You have now, as far as makan, and I'm going to end it off here. The word place can necessitate two things, two meanings. Something that's truth and something that's false. When a person uses these type of words, these type of games, you have to now, you can't affirm it totally and you can't negate it totally. You have to remove the falsehood out of it, and you have to affirm the truth that's in it, so you can embrace the truth and leave off what is incorrect. For the word makan, and I said this to students years ago, when people come with these words, place, the word, or these type of words, Allah Ta'ala, you trying to say that he's in a place? That's what they use. That's a trick question. So the first thing that would come out of your mouth, you would say, what do you mean by place? If you mean and intend by place, first of all, you would say, firstly, number one, before we get into this, leave off the word place, because that was a word used by the Salaf. That's number one. Remove it from the equation. That's number one. We stick to what Allah says. He's above the Arsh. His Arsh is above water. All those come in the authentic Kitaab and Sunnah. Allah is above. He's above the creation. Stick to those words. When Ahl Batil now started to come with words that's confusing. For example, Allah is in a place. Does Allah move? Or that Allah is you mean to tell me he has body parts? Those are words that are general. They are obscure, confusing, and it can necessitate haqq and batil at the same time. That's the reason why we say the word place, disregard it. Secondly, in regards to place, what do you intend by place? Do you mean, when you intend place, something that constricts or confines Allah, meaning that the creation is around him and is bound to him or restricted him? Then that is a meaning that's false. We reject it. We don't believe it. Because you'll find that Ahl Batil, when they use the word place, what comes to their mind is that Allah is mawroof fis sama, that he's confined in the heavens by the creation or something that's created. That meaning is what? Rejected. We don't believe that. But if you mean by place, meaning above the heavens, nothing confines him. Rather, he is bigger than everything, and he, Ta'ala, encompasses everything, and he's bigger than everything, and nothing confines him with the creation, then that is the meaning that we affirm, and that is the meaning that is haqq that we accept from that. Even though we don't use the word place, because it's a ibaratun muhimatun lil haqqi wal batil. It's a word that gives the false impression, which what? Insinuates truth and falsehood at the same time. That's the reason why you can't affirm it, nor can you reject it, until you what? Break it down first. You remove the falsehood out of it, and you leave the truth that's in it, and you affirm that one. It's a trick question. If you say, is Allah in a place? If you say yes, then you affirm to their belief of what they're thinking in their minds. And if you say no, without giving the proper details, then you've rejected the haqq, which is with Ahl Sunnah. That's the reason why it's a trick question. Similar to that, and I'm going to leave it off here. The rant and raving of what you'll find are the shinshanat, التي يدندن حولها أهل الباطل والمبطلون في هذه الأيام. كلمة التقليد, تقليد. We don't blind follow Sheikh Rabir. We don't blind follow the ulama. We don't blind follow. We don't blind follow. We don't blind follow. That's another ibaratun muhimatun lil haqqi wal batil. That's another word that's also likewise confusing, obscure, and is also insinuates truth and falsehood. Because taqleed breaks down into different categories. From taqleed is wajib, which in actuality the first category of taqleed is ittiba', following the Kitab and Sunnah. So when a person comes, hey, akhi, we don't blind follow anyone, you have to say, what do you mean by taqleed? Because there's from taqleed that's wajib. Because in actuality it's not taqleed, it's ittiba', found Kitab and Sunnah. It's a form of taqleed, but in actuality we call it ittiba'. It's found Kitab and Sunnah. That's wajib. And that's, you'll find if you utilize this type of speech, you can nullify the batil. Then you have taqleed that's mustahab, it's highly recommended. Meaning to a person that takes shahada, it's no way he can get around taqleed. Person just come to the fold of Islam, how is he not going to get around taqleed? And then I hear this nonsense about new people, yeah, akhi, we got to learn the Arabic language so we can what? Free ourselves of taqleed. First of all, ya akhi, even though if you speak the Arabic language fluently and you don't have knowledge of Kitab and Sunnah, you're still going to be subjected to taqleed even though you speak it fluently. And even us to this day, certain student of knowledge, even us, when you say Sahahahu al-Imam al-Albani, what are you doing? It's a form of taqleed. When you say, oh, Imam al-Albani authenticated, Hafid ibn Hajar authenticated it, Ibn al-Qayyim declared it to be Hasan, it's a form of taqleed. Because nobody has the time to grab all the books, buy all the resources, look at all the chains. So that necessitates, if you don't do some type of taqleed, that you're going to have to gather every single source of asanid, study it for every hadith that you go over, in which you have no time for. Nor do you have the knowledge to even do it in the first place. But you rely on some type of taqleed, right or wrong. So all this nonsense and behavior about taqleed is nonsense. It's a word that people try to use to confuse people. What do you mean a taqleed? There's taqleed that's wajib, there's taqleed that's mustahab, you have taqleed that's mubah, and you have taqleed that's hayna, and you have taqleed that's muharram. As Ibn al-Qayyim mentions in I'lam al-Waqi'een, it's in there. So don't come with these words, taqleed, we don't blind follow anyone, we don't blind follow Shaykh Rabi'. Ya akhi, at the end of the day, you follow which type of taqleed. What we're doing, the taqleed with Shaykh Rabi' is the first category. It's found in Kitaab At-Tawheed because he brings us evidences. So what are you talking about? He's bringing ayat, ahadith. So it's the first category. Bringing his criticism, bringing his arguments, bringing everything. So that's what we're talking about. The same nonsense of the past with the deviant sects from before is the same nonsense they're doing today. They bring words that are general, that insinuate haqq and batil. And if you don't know how to decipher and pick out of it the falsehood and leave within it the truth, you'll fall into the trap. Because right now someone would say, do you do taqleed? You would say, yeah, akhi, what do you mean by taqleed? Because there's taqleed that's wajib, you got taqleed that's muharram. So which one are you talking about? You have different categories. You have taqleed that's highly recommended. You have taqleed that's obligatory. And you have taqleed that's also muharram. You have taqleed that's hated and detested. Which one are you talking about? Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? These are the type of nonsense that the people of games about that they play. And I'm going to stop here, inshallah. So we don't say the word, the point I'm trying to make is, leave off the word what? Makan, place, as it pertains to Allah. I mean, generally amongst the human beings, you could say, where does he live? Where's Aina Makanahu? That's something different. We talk about as far as Allah. Leave off the word Makan. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Gee, we'll stop here. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Was there any questions about the lesson, anyone? تفضل.